Good morning. Welcome to 4x8 Paper Stuff. This is Beth. We are in a creative mixed media art journal, a traveler's notebook size, following the words and wisdom of Mark Twain in his book, Following the Equator. Sit down, enjoy, and let's see where we go. Good morning. Happy Wednesday. The chapter for today in our Following the Equator, Journey Around the World book by Mark Twain, which I am using as a guide to creative journal about, because I can't go anywhere right now because we have a pandemic, right? This chapter, which is day 18, which I think is chapter 19 or 20 in the book, is all about some reminiscing, and this is going to be volume 1, is reminiscing about times in England and some fox hunts, and pertains nothing to Adelaide, Australia, around the equator, just old memories in his life. And so I am just going to do some kind of hojoni. Hojoni is a new term. It's when you combine Tim Holtz, Jose Naranja, and Nick Bantock on your page. Somehow, some way. I don't know how. I don't know what's going to happen. So I am just going to let it rip here and put a voiceover and call it some kind of collage. So here we go. I'm going to just talk a little bit about the thought process and the info behind the book. It says Mark Twain was, this is from Wikipedia because that's all I know. Mark Twain was practically bankrupt in 1894 due to investing heavily in a failed cage compositor, which I don't know what that is, in an attempt to extricate himself from debt, approximately $100,000, which would be comparable to almost $3 million today's money. He undertook a tour of the British Empire, and at age 60, a route chosen to provide numerous opportunities for lectures in English. So he left on this trip at age 60, and it was in 1897, and it was a lecture tour in an attempt to relieve some of his debt, which is interesting. He did have a lot of money problems. I think he just was not very good with his money. He was friends with Tesla, the real Tesla, the real Tesla, which I find interesting. They were kind of both geniuses and out there. He was also friends with one of the Vanderbilts, too, Nikola Tesla. And I think they were all kind of rogue guys. And this is out of frame just a tad. I moved my camera and forgot to move it back. If I had a brain, that would be dangerous. I just find it, the combination of adventurer and inventor. And even though Mark Twain didn't invent things, but he did do a lot of adventure writing, and he was friends with inventors. So I kind of think of these guys as rogue. They're out there, kind of like today's version of autistic. And I mean that in the best possible complimentary way. Autistic people have super, super high IQs as a general rule. But they don't think like we do. I do. They don't think like I do. They're more, I'm trying to think of the right word. They're more abstract. They're more just out there. And they pick up things faster. And I kind of feel like these guys were that without knowing it. And I might be completely wrong, but that's kind of how I see them. They were just people way ahead of their times. Whether it was thoughts or inventions or money. Vanderbilt was completely super rich. It's just, they're just amazing people to study. They're good study topics. And I feel like that's kind of what I'm doing with this. I'm studying not his writing process, but his thought process, and doing an in-depth study of this book. And quite frankly, having a grand time doing it and finding a flow that I really wasn't aware that I liked. I think we all make do with what we have and evolve into different people all the time. Otherwise, you'd be stagnant and boring and yucky. Yucky is a technical term. I mean, you just don't want to stay in the same place, either with art supplies or in any faction of life. And I think they moved around and evolved, and I'm moving around and hopefully evolving. My new favorite thing. This is so simple, but to me, it speaks volumes, and it's none of it. Oh, wait a second. I still have a little scrap of this thing left. No. And none of it is correct. But it doesn't have to be correct. He's reflecting about some fox hunts and some other things in England. And so this chapter does not pertain anything to where he is currently. It's all memories. And I went with it. I used, in my opinion, completely untrained and completely most likely incorrect, but it works for me. Don't burst my bubble. I got a bunch of paintbrushes I gotta wash out here. This is supposed to be going vertical instead of horizontal. This is Oceania something. It's Francais de l'Oceania, French Polynesia, maybe. He's been there. That works for me. This has got green and black and white and a tad bit of red, and I see a little smidgen of yellow up here. I put that at the top. I put the Chinese writing or Japanese writing at the wrong direction on the bottom. This is a photocopy of old English script from somewhere. They were acetate pieces in a vintage ephemera kit, and I photocopied them on faux coffee stained paper. This is a kangaroo, which he did not talk about in this chapter, but I feel like I can get away with it. This is a piece out of a magazine that is a side of a cliff. This is Nick Bantock's, and this is another piece of paper from somewhere. And this is my eco dyeing that I did the other day. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pieces of paper on here. And it works. They're kind of all in the same tones. This red brings out the red in the fur of the kangaroo and the joey belly, the joey pouch. I love this. So I Hojoni. Yeah. Holtz, Jose, Nick. Hojoni. Hojoni. I need a Hojoni journal. Oh my gosh. If you knew how many altered books I was working on, because I'm trying to go through my used book stack, which is encroaching on 100, literally. Go through and pick out images I want out of them and save their covers if they're hardbound and throw the inside guts away. I know. I don't normally throw anything away, but I don't have room for all of them. That's where the kangaroo came from. Now, I'm not going to mess with my children's dictionaries, which I love. And I have like 3 or 4 of them here. I have one down at the beach, I think. Map books are not getting messed with. But there's some other ephemera books. Not ephemera books. They're books that I'm going to what do you call it? Harvest ephemera out of. And the rest I'm not going to use. I can condense my books by half the space, hopefully, because they're in piles everywhere right now. This I love. This I love. I need to put volume 1 on here because I know we're going to get into several volumes. Let's use this stencil. Since he did his chapters in Roman numerals, we'll do ours in Roman numerals. V. Volume 1. I might put this on the inside cover. Oops. Just because I love that. I didn't photocopy that one. So here he is leaving Vancouver on the Waramo ship. Now I saw it someplace listed as Waramoo, 2 O's. So I'm not sure. He talked about a lot of fish on a travel day. He went to the Sandwich Islands, which is now called Hawaii. He couldn't get off because they had a cholera outbreak. And that's true in his book. They were under a pandemic. We're under a pandemic. That's just crazy. So this was on a Nick Bantock thing, and I cut it apart, and I made a tip in. And I wrote, Diamond Head is visible after 7 days. 7 is my magic number. Knew this, and he had 7 days, really. News this morning was disappointing, as there is a cholera pandemic. We can't go ashore. This is changing the plans of many other passengers. I will miss not seeing Honolulu. And to me, this page looked a lot like Hawaii and charts of the ocean and turtles and things like that. Sandwich Islands, excuse me. And this was when he crossed the international date line, and I just did a lot of scraps. And I used that stamp again. That's a picture of the actual ship off the internet. He left Vancouver, went to the Sandwich Islands. And here's the international date line between Alaska and Russia. Washi tape. Cross the international date line under a lunar eclipse. What day is it now? And then on that piece of paper, they had this. So I thought that was cool for the international date line. This is when he saw the Southern Cross in the sky. This came out of a Hubble spacecraft book. I'm not sure I like it, but it's there. He was at sea between the Hawaiian Islands and Fiji. And I just love this. There's coral, there's sea urchins, there's a frame, a jelly plate that I made. Yep. This is Fiji became English in 1874, declared its independence 1987. I've seen different days for both of those, so hopefully that's close enough. I did this on Procreate. I just put a bunch of colors, tropical island watercolors, approximately 300 islands, because I've seen different 280, 290, 302, so I said approximately 300. Arrived in Fiji and its numerous islands, almost 300, white sand, palms, and tropical plants, and the heat, because he complains about the heat. And I just put lots of tropical things, tropical flowers, tropical birds, the English crown, tropical bottles, something from another country, but I thought it was cool, an old-fashioned globe, tropical colors, and wrote Fiji here with ephemera letters. Love this. Oh, there's a ship and a star. Love this. This is when he went into the southern hemisphere. On our way to Australia, wave after wave, fish crashing into the sides of the boat. Are they in our way or are we in theirs? The humidity is comparable to South Carolina, which in their book, he really does say that. Columbia, South Carolina, page 114. That's where I live. This is just meant to be. Stamps. Postage cutouts. Stamps from that antique ephemera book. Antique sticker book. The map. This is when he talks about the dolphin and reflecting their shiny skin, reflecting off the light of the moon on a sea day. And this is supposed to be reflecting, and this is just a jelly plate for my granddaughter, actually. Dolphins guide us into Sydney Harbor. The moonlight bounces off their silky skin and adds phosphorescent light to show us the way. That's what he said. Blinding splashes of explosion of lights had us gasping at the sight. Those are a lot of his words, not mine. The whole chapter on this one was talking about Australia as a prison colony. So I just wrote Sydney with magazine letters, which I love. A dark jelly plate that my granddaughter made that morning she usually makes mud. And to me, it reminded me of a dank, dark cell of a prison colony. This is when he talked about prisons, sharks, and sheep. So I took out the sharks and the sheep, the teeth and the fur, the water and the land, the warmth and the depth, the warmth and death, cute and deadly. Yikes. That's a photocopy of a paper towel with Jane Davenport markers dripped on it. The battle of teeth and fur is what I wrote, and I just had sharks attacking sheep. This one, it was on a train trip, which there's a train and tracks. On a train trip, 17 hours to Melbourne from Sydney. This was Plan B destination. He wanted to go more north, but he was sick, so he needed to go where it was drier, really in the book. Going by train, so should see lots of animals. Spoiler, only saw birds, no kangaroos. So I put in birds and a kangaroo, even though I didn't see any. This one is when he was between Melbourne and Adelaide in Sydney and Melbourne, a town called Wagga Wagga, which is still there. I did a bunch of train things and my purple jelly plate that I love on deli paper, and just a bunch of old train pieces, ephemera pieces that I found. Melbourne Cup, a bunch of different stuff about the Melbourne Cup. Here's when he arrives in Adelaide. It was 4:20 when he left Wagga Wagga, so I put in 4:20. Spoiler alert, that's in digital letters. I couldn't resist. This was off of Nick Bantock. Those are real pictures of Adelaide. This was something that he did, Nick Bantock did. This was off of his sheet. That's a lady I found on Pinterest, and she's gorgeous. And a clock. Because again, it was going to be 17 hours, and he mentioned that. And we landed on 17 on this thing. Adelaide foliage, which he talked a little bit about, but then he talked about gum trees, which is right there. So he started here, Sydney down here. He goes to Melbourne by train this way, and then he goes over to Adelaide. And talks about kangaroo for kangaroo leather, for shoes. And then we were back in the botanical gardens yesterday and today. Cool. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.